Alright, vote processor. It is a free tier simple single ec2 instance that's currently processing my clicks or votes. If we actually look into this, we will see that it has a Python script, processor.py. It has a lot of login statements that I left here. Yeah, so basically what it does, if we actually look to the very bottom, we will see that the starting point, it receives the messages from the queue, from this queue, SQS in particular. It receives the messages in the queue, and it basically starts processing them through continuously running loop process message. Process message is a helper function that's stored here, and what it does, it gets a message, it parses the fields to make sure it gets the voter and vote, and then it just updates count. Update count is basically just a single operation, which is table get item. You have to get the item based on the key. There is one table with one key, one DynamoDB table with one key, voter, and it basically just increases it by 1. So if the vote is B, it increases it by 1. If the vote is A, it increases the A field by 1. Notice that here I'm actually using two different pieces of code. This one is a simple get and put operation, right? This is get and this is put operation. And this one is done using the update expression. Update expression is like its own SQL-like language that's used for DynamoDB tables. I actually had to Google both of them and find the answers and tweak and adapt them to my answer. I actually like to keep the code in two different ways, right? Just to show you that it's actually two different things. It's two different ways to update the table fields. I actually spent a lot of time, writing this code. I know it's kind of simplistic, but still, nonetheless. Also, after you update the count, you delete the message. You delete the message from the actual queue, from the actual SQS queue. That's why it's always going to be empty. There should be any unprocessed messages left. Another thing that I'd like to point out is that, as you can see here, this vote processor, this ec2 instance, it works with two things. It works with SQS, it gets data from SQS, and it sends data to DynamoDB. So it has to have access to both. This is another thing that I learned. You need to work with IAM, and IAM is probably the most important AWS service out there. So as you can see, if you look into the actual security tab, you will see that IAM role that I created is called vote processor ec2 role. If we look into this particular role, we will see that it has a bunch of policies. It has ec2 can access DynamoDB. I had to create this particular policy, which basically allows to put, update, get, query, scan for the particular votes table. Not for all of the tables, but only for this one table. So my ec2 instance is granularly defined. My ec2 instance can only write and get data from one single DynamoDB table. Not from all of the tables, but only from one single DynamoDB table. So you have to put votes here, not star. Another policy that I attached to this ec2 role is it can access CQS, simple queue service. So it can delete message, which it does. It can get queue URL, and it can receive message. And the resource it is allowed to do is the actual SQS. This is the SQS ARN name. And it also is allowed to get queue attributes. So because of these two policies, the role can interact with SQS and DynamoDB. And this role is attached to my ec2 instance, this one, vote processor. And it can do so.